discovered how one billionaire's touching choice cost him everything in just 5 incredible years. In the heart of a small Midwestern town, Jack Thompson was a shining beacon of the American dream. With the warm aroma of freshly baked pies floating through the air, he took a deep breath, feeling the magic of family and community. Raised by a hard-working single mother, he learned the values of love and perseverance as she toiled day and night to give him a better life. Now, in his early 40s, Jack had transformed those dreams into reality, a self-made billionaire, respected by many and loved by all. But one decision shattered his carefully built world. Determined to save a failing factory that would preserve the few jobs left in town, Jack poured his heart and a significant part of his wealth into a venture that seemed noble. He thought he was being a hero, but whispers of disregard followed him. Friends in the city dismissed him, branding his choice a foolish clinging to the past. Even his wife, once his strongest supporter, began to hint at financial ruin, and their children felt the growing tension. In their eyes, he was putting everything on the line, risking their status for a town that seemed to fade with each passing year. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Just as the walls began to close in, that fateful evening arrived. The sky turned dark, and nature unleashed its fury. A tornado ripped through the heart of the town, turning homes into splintered memories and uprooting lives in a matter of moments. Amid the chaos, Jack didn't hesitate. He jumped into action, rallying volunteers, bringing supplies, and providing aid. No longer just a billionaire, he became a symbol of hope, a man who had not forgotten where he came from. As Jack worked tirelessly alongside his neighbors, he felt a warmth spread through him, igniting a renewed sense of purpose. And in those moments, he realized what true wealth meant. After the storm, standing amid a sea of destruction, he contemplated his future, torn between saving his reputation and staying true to the values that had been instilled in him. But doubt crept in, and the weight of what he had built pressed harder than ever. Would he pursue the restoration of his former wealth, or would he embrace the newfound bonds forged in the aftermath of the disaster? Each choice stood as a battleground, one that would pit his ambition against his dedication to the community. As whispers of admiration spread among the townsfolk, Jack knew in his heart that the struggle was just beginning. Though the storm had passed, the real tempest lay ahead. Would Jack stand firm and redefine success, or would he succumb to the shifting tides of expectations and ambition? Only time would tell. As the first rays of sunlight broke through the scattered clouds, the town was still in shock. The remains of homes lay strewn about like forgotten toys. But within the rubble, hope flickered, a small fire ignited by human connection and resilience. Jack stepped over debris, his heart heavy yet resolute. The faces of his neighbors were a mix of despair and gratitude, a reflection of their shared struggle. Jack began setting a plan into motion. He gathered the townsfolk at the community center. It hadn't escaped him that this building, once a place for laughter and community dinners, now felt like the last beacon of unity. Jack stood before the crowd, a mixture of old friends and newcomers, and cleared his throat. "Everyone, I know these are dark times," he began, his voice steady yet emotional. "But out of darkness can come light. This storm may have taken our homes, but it hasn't taken our spirit. Together, we can rebuild not just our houses, but our community." There were murmurs of agreement, sparks of energy igniting within the crowd. He saw familiar faces nodding along, their hope reawakening.
Among them was Sarah, a single mother who had worked at the factory for years. Her eyes were glassy with tears, but she smiled, inspired by Jack's words. He realized that he wasn't just speaking for himself, he was voicing the collective longing to restore their town. The days turned into weeks, and Jack's phone rang less frequently with calls from investors and business partners. Instead, it buzzed with reminders of volunteer meetings, supply distributions, and community fundraisers. He threw himself into every effort, abandoning his fortune while nurturing something that couldn't be measured in dollars. A makeshift community garden sprang up, nourished by shared labor amidst remnants of shattered glass and twisted metal, each seed a testament to perseverance. At home, the tension seemed palpable. His wife, Emily, watched him with a mixture of concern and admiration. She would lie awake at night worrying about their finances, while Jack dreamed of a revitalized town. One evening, she confronted him, the worry spilling out along with her words. "Jack, I admire your dedication, but we're losing everything. The kids notice. They're worried too. What if your plan doesn't work?" He felt the weight of her fears dancing in the air between them. "This isn't just about me anymore, Em. It's about our neighbors, our friends. We can't walk away from that." They sat in silence, the love they shared wrestling with the uncertainty hanging over them. Jack saw the truth in Emily's eyes, a love that feared for the future but also held on to a glimmer of hope. And he vowed to find a way. As the community began to rebuild, whispers of a growing movement echoed beyond their small town. People began to notice Jack's determination and resilience, inspiring them to rally around similar causes in their own communities. The media caught wind of the story, a local billionaire risking it all to support a dying town. Jack was invited to share his journey on various platforms, away from the greed-filled hustle of his former life. But every article and interview prompted another haunting question. Would he be able to sustain his vision? And would the community be willing to stand with him for the long haul? Each day brought new challenges, miscommunications, funding issues, and lingering doubts, not only from outsiders, but from within his own heart. He felt exhaustion gripping him tightly, leaving him to wonder whether redemption was truly within reach. Yet, amidst the mounting pressure and expectations, a flicker of something deeper began to surface, a desire to redefine success on his own terms. What if his greatest lesson wasn't built on financial triumph, but on love and devotion? Jack stood at a crossroads, unsure of which path to take, and as he looked towards the horizon, he sensed that the most significant challenges were yet to come. Would he dare to lean into vulnerability for the sake of his family, or would he double down on a cause that might break him? The true test was just beginning. Morning light streamed through the community center's windows, illuminating faces filled with a mix of determination and fatigue. The townsfolk gathered again, their energy waning but their spirits still flickering. Jack stood before them, aware of the unspoken weight they all carried. Each pair of eyes held stories of loss, hope, and a yearning for normalcy. "I want to thank each of you for showing up," he began, his voice wavering slightly. "Together, we've achieved so much, but we still have a long road ahead." He scanned the room, noticing Sarah's son, Timmy, clutching a crumpled drawing of their old factory, colors fading, but the heart bold. He wanted to think that progress was being made, one brick at a time, but doubts crept in. As the days turned into months, Jack found himself torn between his vision for the town and the demands of his family. The children were growing restless, missing their quiet routines and gentle comforts that had been so abruptly pulled away. Emily had started to work part-time at the local diner just to keep things afloat, and the strain was palpable. What once felt like unity among the townsfolk turned into an exhausting series of meetings filled with bickering and frustrations. The reality of rebuilding was harsher than Jack had anticipated. The lack of funding became a familiar enemy, creeping in to darken the hopeful narrative that Jack tried to share each week.
One evening, while sorting through piles of donations at the community center, Jack heard their laughter. A group of children had wandered in, playing tag amidst a landscape of uncertainty, their joyful shouts echoing through the hall. He paused, feeling a lump form in his throat as he watched the innocent play survive in their disrupted world. But laughter was fleeting, and reality crashed back in when Jack received a call about a proposed grant. A large donation might help kickstart the community's recovery, but there was a catch. He'd have to promise certain accountability measures that could strip away the very community spirit he cherished. It was a deal that felt like victory on paper, but came with strings attached. "Jack, you can't seriously consider this," Emily exclaimed later that evening, her eyes wide with disbelief. They stood in their dim kitchen, the remnants of takeout strewn across the table. "They don't care about us. They just want their name on a building." He wanted to argue. He wanted to believe in the glimmer of hope it offered. But the worry etched deep lines into Emily's face. "What if we lose our voice in this?" she pressed on, her voice breaking slightly. "What if they take control?" Jack's heart pounded. Wasn't she right? He picked up Timmy's drawing and slipped it into his pocket. What kind of example was he setting? Would money really buy back the sense of belonging that had crumbled with the town? The next morning, as he stood in front of a mirror, Jack's reflection felt foreign. The man who once thrived on power and success now appeared weary, questioning not only the choices he made, but who he was becoming. Walking into the office that day, he felt the shoulders of the town on his back, heavy yet expectant. The whispers of doubt grew louder, battling against the determination he had come to live for. What if this deal was the wrong step, the one that would cost him more than just a bit of pride? Jack resolved to confront this head-on. In the depths of his heart, he knew clarity would come only from an unwavering commitment to the roots of community. It was another pivotal moment, but in the shadows whispered a new thought. What if this wasn't just about the town? What if, as he sought to mend the tears in the fabric of their lives, he unearthed gaps within his own? As he stepped into the sunlight, a new question formed. Would he risk everything to protect what truly mattered, even if it meant letting go of the promises that seemed like salvation? That uncertainty loomed, a waiting storm on the horizon, but deep down he knew the answer was evolving. Jack found himself staring at the tattered drawing in his pocket, the vibrant colors faded yet holding a fierceness he couldn't ignore. It had been days since the thought of the grant hovered over him like a storm cloud. Each time he rehashed his conversation with Emily, guilt gnawed at him, a silent reminder that this was about more than just money. With every contribution, they built not just a metaphorical wall, but a real foundation of trust, resolving to take the long way home. When the meeting concluded, Jack felt a lift in his spirit. Although uncertainty remained, so too did the hope. They had found their voices, their strength, together. However, as Jack walked home that night, a shadow crossed his mind. What if the money from the grant truly was the answer? What if withdrawing from it meant risking further disaster? But deep inside, he knew they were embarking on something far more profound than mere survival. Would their collective spirit and passion be enough to sustain them, or would the reality of their choices lead to unforeseen consequences? As he gazed up at the stars, a creeping doubt settled in.
Would he be able to hold this community together when the winds of change blew strong? Just as those thoughts took root, a familiar voice called out from behind him. "Jack, wait!" It was Timmy, racing after him, his drawing still clutched tightly in hand. "You forgot this." Jack turned, a smile stretching across his face. But in that moment, he felt an unsettling realization trickle in. What would it truly cost to protect that drawing and everything it represented? The question weighed heavier on his heart as he accepted the paper from the boy's outstretched hands. Jack knelt down to meet Timmy's eager gaze, the boy's eyes sparkling with excitement. But behind that brightness lay an innocence that Jack felt compelled to protect. He took a moment to appreciate the drawing, a crayon-colored house with flowers blooming in the front yard and a big, bright sun smiling overhead. This was not merely a drawing. It represented Timmy's hope, a vision of the future they all dreamed about. "Thanks for bringing this, buddy," Jack said, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on him like an old coat, a coat that felt heavy yet familiar. "This is beautiful. You really captured it." Timmy beamed, pride swelling in his chest. "When I grow up, I'm going to build a house just like this for all of us." The earnestness in his voice tugged at Jack's heartstrings, a mix of joy and dread spiraling within. "Let's make sure it happens," Jack whispered, a promise forming in the depths of his heart. But could he deliver on that promise? Could he build a future that lived up to Timmy's dreams? As he walked home, the streets felt different, his surroundings pulsing with fresh possibilities. The sound of laughter and make-believe from children playing in the fading daylight echoed softly, a reminder of what was worth fighting for. But with each step, his thoughts darkened again. What if they failed? What if their dreams shattered like glass? He could feel the doubts creeping back, clawing at the edges of his optimism. They had begun to forge a path on their own terms, but now the weight of responsibility felt overwhelming. That night in his kitchen, illuminated by the small glow of a single bulb, Jack stared at the drawing pinned to the fridge. It would be so easy to abandon the hard road ahead. The allure of the grant loomed like a siren call, offering shiny solutions wrapped in promise. After all, the fear of further decline was real. The recent layoffs at the factory, the empty storefronts, the possibilities for their hometown seemed to drift further away day by day. Emily slipped into the kitchen, her eyes landing on the drawing. A smile tugged at her lips, but it was quickly replaced by a look of concern. "Jack, you've been quiet since the meeting. What's really bothering you?" Jack turned to her, debating how much to share. I want to do this right. I don't want to let the town down, or Timmy." He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling a breath of frustration. "Sometimes what feels right isn't always easy. It's okay to be scared," Emily said, her voice wrapping around him like a warm blanket. "But you're not alone in this. We're all in it together, remember?" He nodded, feeling a flicker of warmth ignite in his gut at her words. Even still, doubts lingered. What if his choices fractured their fragile unity? "Do you think people will really stand with us?" he asked, his voice shaky. "Absolutely," Emily replied firmly. "They already have. Look at Mrs. Thompson. She's willing to invest in our future. A small group became a larger one tonight. They're starting to believe we can do this together." Her confidence reminded him of the flickering hope from earlier. But what if it wasn't enough? Despite the encouraging pulse of her words, as Jack settled into bed that night, he noticed the drawing still sitting on the fridge. It felt like a lighthouse amidst a swirling storm, but the storm was relentless. Jack closed his eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. Images of the town battered by storms of despair filled his mind, drowning out the peaceful dreams. He feared the day would come when they'd have to choose between hope and survival. Just then, a sound interrupted his thoughts, a knock on the door. Reaching for the light, Jack swung it open, heart pounding in anticipation. Standing there was Sarah, her eyes wide, a crumpled piece of paper in her hands. "Jack, you need to see this. It's about the grant." As he extended his hand to take it, unease settled like a cold hand on his shoulder. What new twist was waiting just around the corner? Jack took the crumpled piece of paper from Sarah's hand, his heartbeat quickening as he unfolded it. The words jumped out at him like urgent fireflies, flickering with potential danger and promise. It was a letter from the grant committee. He could feel his palms grow clammy as he scanned the contents, which seemed to both shimmer and threaten. "What does it say?" Emily asked, stepping closer to him, her breath hitching slightly. Sarah leaned against the doorframe, her eyes darting between them, eager for an answer. Jack swallowed hard, trying to clear the tightness from his throat. It's a chance to present our project," he finally said, his voice cracking, "in front of some major investors." Their hopes hung in the air, floating like gossamer threads. Everyone knew that securing funding was crucial. It tears at Jack's gut to think how much rested on a few minutes of their lives being laid bare before strangers. "But they want us to present a detailed plan by the end of the week." Emily's face lit up, a spark igniting in her eyes. "We can do this. We've been working towards this. We have the support of the town, and we know what we want to achieve." "Yeah, but—" Jack hesitated, uncertain. "What if we can't pull it off? What if I stumble over my words, or the numbers don't add up? We're talking about our dreams up against powerful people." "Stop that," Sarah interjected, her voice firmer than he expected. "You've got to believe in what you're fighting for. You can't let doubts hold you back. Not now." Jack felt the weight of expectation in her gaze, and it settled heavily on his shoulders. He remembered Timmy, the way the boy saw possibility in every color he blended on the page. Could he even come close to fulfilling that hope? "All right," he said, clenching the paper tightly in his fist like a lifeline. "Let's plan. We need to gather everyone tomorrow. We'll brainstorm ideas, make this presentation something they can't ignore." The three of them decided to meet early, fueled by the urgency that now danced in the air. As Jack returned to the kitchen, he paused to look at Timmy's drawing again. This was it. The hope that had led them here felt both a blessing and a challenge. But as the excitement began to seep in, a memory flashed through Jack's mind. His father's face, weary and worn from never being able to change their fate. "We're going to build a future," Jack whispered to himself, determination growing at the base of his spine. That night, they gathered a small, motley crew at the local community center. Old clocks ticked on the wall, while murmurs shimmered in the air. Neighbors sat huddled together, some whispering words of encouragement, while others held their breaths. Jack stood at the head of the table, the crumpled letter before him. "We're here to change this town," he said, his voice steady despite the tremors of vulnerability underneath. "We have this opportunity. If we work together, we can make Timmy's dreams come true. We can build a future that shines as bright as that drawing." Eyes locked onto him, some filled with hope, others with uncertainty. Jack could feel the electricity in the air, everyone hoping, yearning for something different. He glanced at Emily, who nodded at him as if to say, "You've got this." Then, when Jack thought the moment couldn't get more intense, an unexpected voice rang out from the back. It was Mrs. Thompson, her face grave yet lit with conviction. "What if we give them something they can't turn down? What if we offer to match whatever funding we receive?" The room fell silent, a heartbeat echoing in the stillness. Jack felt his heart thumping in his chest like a drum. The idea hung in the air, full of potential. Could they really do that? He glanced around, studying faces filled with a mixture of anxiety and exhilaration, and the weight of what was needed rested heavy on his shoulders. "Let's keep the momentum going," he breathed, gathering the forms of doubt into flames of resolve. "What else do we have to do?" As they brainstormed, the possibilities unfurled before them like the petals of a flower blooming in spring. But just as he felt the surge of unity wash over him, another wave of fear crested within him. What would happen if they failed to convince the investors? What would that mean for him? For Timmy? The thought stung like ice water splashed upon his skin. And then, suddenly, another knock echoed through the room. All eyes turned toward the door. What now? Jack felt a whirlpool of hope and trepidation unfold within him. Who would walk through that door, and would they bring more questions or answers? The door creaked open slowly, and the community center fell silent as all eyes focused on the figure stepping inside. A tall man, dark-haired and strikingly handsome, paused at the threshold. It was Jesse Carter, the billionaire tech mogul whose name was often in the newspapers for coming to the rescue of struggling towns. Jack held his breath. Could this be the lifeline they needed? Jesse scanned the room, a slight smile appearing as he recognized a few faces. He had grown up in the next town over, and word of his success brought a mix of admiration and resentment to those who remembered where he'd come from. "I heard about your meeting," he said, his voice resonant and booming. "I couldn't resist dropping in." Jack's heart raced. This was unexpected, yet somehow perfect. We're hoping to present an innovative community project," he started, his voice cracking slightly under the weight of Jesse's gaze. "It's about creating opportunities for our kids, igniting their passions." The billionaire's expression shifted. Curiosity piqued. "Interesting, but why should I care? What's in it for you?" The question hung heavily in the air, a challenge wrapped in skepticism. Jack swallowed hard, but determination rose. "It's about more than just funding for us. It's an investment in the future. We want kids like Timmy to believe they can achieve anything. We need to foster dreams, not just for ourselves, but for a brighter community." The billionaire nodded slowly, tilted his head, and studied Jack.
"I like the passion, but passion doesn't pay the bills. What makes you think you can deliver on this?" Jack glanced around the room, seeing the shared hope in his neighbor's eyes. "Because together we can. We're not just throwing ideas. We've got a community ready to back us up. We're offering something more than money. We're offering hope." Emily jumped in, her voice strong. "We're offering a future. Kids need spaces to create. We want them to feel what it's like to dream big, and this will give them that chance." Jesse leaned forward, intrigued. The energy in the room shifted again as all eyes rested on him, waiting for his response. "I'll tell you what," he began. "If you can put together a well-researched proposal by the end of the week, I'll match whatever funding you manage to get. I won't make any further promises beyond that." A rush of murmurs spread like wildfire throughout the group. Some faces lit up with excitement, while others showed lingering doubts. "I'll take that deal," Jack said, his voice firm and confident, despite the fresh wave of fear that washed over him. "We'll give it everything we've got. We've been waiting for this chance, and we won't waste it." For a moment, the two were locked in a gaze that felt electric. "All right," Jesse said, breaking the spell. "I'll arrange a meeting for next week to discuss things." And as he turned to leave, Jack stood taller, knowing they had just taken a massive leap. But doubts echoed in the back of his mind. Could they really pull it off? Would they be able to draw the detailed plan together in time? With the weight of the community resting on his shoulders, he felt an urgency that pulsed like a heartbeat. And just like that, someone whispered from the back of the room, "What if this is our last chance?" Jack had never felt so torn between hope and fear before. Everything was on the line, and the clock was ticking. What challenges lay ahead before their dreams could become reality? The following days passed in a whirlwind of activity. As dawn broke each morning, Jack found himself wide awake, staring at his laptop. The community's dreams rested in those blinking cursors. They needed a solid proposal, but with every word he typed, self-doubt crept in, gnawing away at his confidence. He worked alongside Emily and a group of dedicated volunteers. Papers were scattered across the community center's tables, covered in colorful drawings, ambitious plans, and sketches of what they envisioned for the arts center. Every child's face that flashed in Jack's mind fueled his determination.
They needed this. Their community needed this. Jack, Emily's voice broke through. Can you take a look at this? I think we need to focus more on the impact we'll have, not just the budget. Right, Jack replied, grateful for her perspective. She had a gift for weaving emotion into their plans. They needed to represent not just numbers, but hopes, dreams, and futures.
Hours turned into days. As the deadline loomed closer, fatigue settled in the creases of Jack's eyes. He blinked hard, trying to shake off the exhaustion that was almost physical. Each late-night brainstorming session brought them closer, yet pushed him further into uncertainty. Friday night came, and the room buzzed with energy as the team gathered to finalize the proposal. Laptops glowed like tiny beacons of hope around the dimly lit room. Jack could see the determination etched into the faces of the volunteers. They all believed, but would it be enough to convince someone like Jesse? They printed out copies, stacking them neatly on the table. "This is it," Emily said, her voice tinged with excitement and nerves. "We can't doubt ourselves now." Jack felt a tight knot in his stomach as he shuffled the papers. "Yeah, I just hope Jesse is as moved as we are." Everyone nodded. It was a collective fear, interlaced with determination. They had poured their hearts into this, and the thought of failing felt unbearable. The weight of the community felt more prominent than ever. As they prepared to leave the community center, Jack lingered for a moment. He looked around at the walls filled with art and laughter, remnants of what they were fighting for. This couldn't be just another project. It was their lifeline. Their children's futures were at stake. The next morning arrived with a heavy fog, mirroring the uncertainty wrapping around Jack's mind. He'd barely slept, and his thoughts raced in circles. Would Jesse see the potential, or would this just be another hollow chance that slipped through their fingers? When they arrived for the meeting, the brisk air refused to clear his thoughts, and the weight of anticipation grew heavier with every moment. Jack's hands trembled slightly as he held the proposal tight. Across the table, Jesse leaned back in his chair, his sharp gaze scanning their papers. "You've put a lot into this," he began, "but I want to know what you think will happen after the funding runs out." Jack swallowed hard. What indeed? Would the spark ignited in our community fade without continuous support? The answer felt like a dagger twisting in his heart. "Jesse," he replied, summoning every ounce of conviction, "we're not just looking for a one-time funding solution. Our goal is to create a self-sustaining center. We envision programs that can engage not only kids, but the entire community. This is a promise of growth, not a last stop." Jesse's expression softened slightly, but the skepticism didn't disappear. "And what if it fails? What about the investment?" Those words lingered in the air, heavy with possibility. What if it did? Jack caught sight of the faces of those who believed in him, and doubt twisted into resolve. "We're ready to fight for it, to find ways to keep it alive, for them, for everyone." The room held its breath for a moment, as if waiting for Jesse to reveal his verdict. Just then, an unexpected crash echoed from outside. The sound pulled their attention away for a split second, and Jack's heart raced, tension climbing anew. "What was that?" Jesse asked, raising an eyebrow. The moment of truth was approaching, but Jack had no way of knowing the twists waiting just around the corner rather than just in the proposal. Igniting hope was only part of the journey. What would it take to keep that flame alive? As he stood there, uncertainty mingling with a flicker of hope, he realized some answers would need to come from unexpected places. The crash outside startled everyone. Jack's heart raced, but he forced his attention back to Jesse, who was already rising from his chair. Without thinking, Jack followed suit, following Jesse toward the door. The volunteers huddled close, anxiety visible in their faces. Outside,
Chaos had erupted. A nearby tree branch, weighed down by the morning's moisture, had snapped and fallen onto a parked car, leaving dents and broken glass scattered across the pavement. Jack's stomach twisted, not just at the damage, but at the lost moment inside. They had been so close to clarity, yet now distractions pulled them away. "Do we need to help?" one of the volunteers, Mia, asked, her brow furrowed with concern. "Let's see if anyone is hurt first," Jack said, trying to sound more certain than he felt. They navigated the throng of concerned neighbors gathering around the damaged car. Jessie was talking to the owner, a middle-aged woman with tears in her eyes, desperation evident on her face. Jack felt a pang in his heart. She looked just like the mothers in the community, who spent their days juggling work and juggling the children's dreams. "Is she okay?" he asked as he approached. Jessie glanced back at Jack, a subtle shift in his expression. "Scratched, but fine. She's going to be all right." A hand rested on Jack's shoulder, and he turned to see Emily next to him, worry etched in her features. "Do you think this means Jessie won't want to invest now, that we've lost his attention for good?" Jack didn't answer right away. His mind raced. Yes, the meeting was to electrify their hopes, but they were all human, and accidents like this struck a chord. Yet beneath that worry was a new thought blossoming. Not if we show him that we're here for our community. We can help her. His eyes scanned the crowd, and as he noticed others stepping forward to assist, hope ignited. Jack motioned for his team. "Let's lend a hand. We'll get the car moves, check for any damage on other affected vehicles, and clear the way. A show of our commitment to the community." Without waiting for a response, he dashed toward the crowd, already feeling the energy of a collective effort rising. Emily was by his side, fueled by a new enthusiasm that seemed to spread to the others like wildfire. As they worked, clearing debris and comforting the car owner, Jack stole glances back at Jessie. He was still observing.
Jack felt a flicker of determination growing within him. Maybe this chaos could morph into a compelling narrative, one that spoke not just about their art center, but about resilience and community. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the scene calmed down. The branch had been cleared, and the lady stood up, a whisper of gratitude on her face. Jessie had watched the entire thing, slowly nodding his head. "Jack," he called, stepping towards him, "you know, it's easy to talk about creating a center or a project, but it's moments like this that really count. It speaks to your heart and motivation." Jack felt a rush of hope. "It's all about belonging, Jessie. We need to show that love isn't just about what's inside the art center, but what we do for each other outside of it." "Exactly," Jessie agreed, a glimmer of respect reflecting in his eyes. The atmosphere shifted. They shared a moment, a recognition etched in silence, a bond cemented through caring acts. As they walked back to the meeting again, Jack felt that maybe, just maybe, they had found a way to keep that flame alive. But after the hard work of the day, a new flutter of anxiety gripped Jack again. Would what they'd begun enough to sway Jessie? Would their community story be enough to touch him deeply? As they settled back into their seats and Jack prepared to present their proposal again, he wondered if the crashing moment had changed everything. Could hope be birthed from chaos? With breaths held tightly, the team awaited Jessie's verdict one more time. Would this be their moment, or would everything they'd worked for fall apart? The meeting resumed, the air thick with anticipation and a flicker of hope. Jack could feel every heartbeat in the room. It sang a collective song of determination and possibility. He glanced around at the faces of his community, filled with resolve, and the drawing of Timmy's hopeful future flashed in his mind. Jessie looked at him, clearing his throat as he prepared to speak. "You've proven something today. You didn't back down when hard times hit. You didn't run from responsibilities. That speaks volumes." Jack's heart raced. We're a community bound by love and purpose. If this isn't a measure of success, then I don't know what is. It's about caring for one another, building something together that will last. Jessie nodded and took a moment, as if wrestling with his decision. Jack could practically sense the wheels turning in the billionaire's mind.
I appreciate your enthusiasm, Jack. I see the passion and heart you've poured into this project. I believe in what you're trying to create." A rush of relief flooded through Jack. He felt light, a softening of the weight he'd carried for months. Was it really happening? Were they on the cusp of turning their dreams into reality? "Here's the deal," Jack said, leaning forward. "I'll match whatever you raise, but you need to show me how you plan to sustain this center beyond the initial funding, proving that this is more than just a benefit. I need to see a lasting impact." Jack's heart soared as excitement bubbled over in the room, cascading through every person present. "You have our word, Jesse. We're determined to invest in our community's future." Emily squeezed Jack's hand tightly, her eyes shining with pride. The room erupted into applause, gratitude echoing off the walls. Each clap resonated like a promise, a vow that they would not let this opportunity slip away, that they'd forge ahead together. "They say the strength of a community lies in its people, and today each of you has shown what that means," Jack said, his voice rising above the cheers. "We won't just hope for change, we will be the change. Let's outline how we will turn this art center into a thriving hub, a place where we build dreams, grow talent, and create bonds that'll last generations." With renewed fervor, the meeting morphed into a brainstorming session. Ideas flooded in from every corner. The children's laughter filled the room as Timmy proudly declared a contest to decorate the center. Sarah jumped in with music programs, guitar lessons, and local artists showcasing their crafts. "Let's engage everyone, find sponsorships, introduce workshops, and bring back our local pride," Jack rallied. Energy pulsed through the community, buoying his spirits. As they worked late into the evening, Jack caught glimpses of old friends sharing smiles, the same faces that fought alongside him through the storm. In that moment, Jack knew they were creating something far more profound. This wasn't simply an art center, it was a rebirth, a home built on shared stories, laughter, and relentless spirit. Weeks later, the grand opening of the center drew closer, and Jack stood amidst the buzzing excitement. It had become a reality, walls painted with bright murals from local artists, the air filled with the sound of children's chatter, music seeping through the spaces like warm sunlight. On opening day, Jack stood in front of an overflowing crowd, his heart full, tears glistening in the corner of his eyes. He felt the warmth of small hands clutching his, the beaming faces of children ready to chase their dreams. "Today, we celebrate what we have achieved together," he began, his voice steady with certainty. "This is a testament that ambition is nothing without heart. We built this by believing in one another, refusing to stand alone." The crowd erupted in cheers, the sound echoing through the community as if carrying their shared dreams to the sky. As the sun dipped low, coloring the horizon in warm hues, Jack felt the winds shift. An energy buzzed within him, igniting a deep-rooted truth. They had resurrected more than structures. They had rekindled hope, resilience, and the spirit of community.